Spotify, once again, found a way to legally pay song creators less. We've been noticing, now we know why. Notices were sent over to Spotify. Over 2,500 alleged, quote, detections of infringement, launching an initiative against Spotify. The industry as a whole vomited a little bit. So Spotify can now legally pay song creators less money. In the bundling lawsuit, let me just give you context. So there was this lawsuit that was brought by the Mechanical Licensing Collective, right? Which is a place that pays you money. This is important for you to know, okay? So the MLC, right, is entrusted by the government to collect mechanical royalties from music platforms here in the United States, and then to pay the MLC, and then the MLC pays you. Or if you have a publisher, it pays your publisher. Now, what had happened is that, music publishers had gone to war with Spotify and Amazon Music, and this was back in 2018. And this was over the percentage of the royalties that got paid to you. So in 2018, they took this to the Copyright Royalty Board and they're like, we've had it. Spotify's underpaying. And so please, we need some help. So it was the Copyright Royalty Board that basically looked at everything. And at the time, the mechanical royalty rate was 10.5%. Let me put it this way. The way you get paid, you put a song on Spotify. There's money that's going to go over to the Mechanical Licensing Collective for mechanical royalties, and there's money that's going to go to your music distributor. So there's money going in two places, right? That we want to make sure that you're collecting. So as it related to the one going over here, they're like, hey, it's like 10.5%. That's terrible. So they fought, and they landed at 15.1%. So they were like, hey, between 2018 and 2022, we're going to agree in this little settlement agreement. And it was called the Phonorecord III Agreement. Hang with me. I promise this is really important for you to contextualize. So then for this period that we're in right now, so 2023 through 2027, again, Amazon Music and Spotify went to war and they tried to appeal this, okay, because they just didn't want to pay you any more money. So they appealed the decision. They go, you know what, the 15.1, way too much. No. And what everyone landed on was 15.35%. Okay, so we're still kind of talking pretty small numbers here, right? But anyway, that's the current amount for the mechanical royalties. The reason why this matters is because now the current Phonorecord IV Agreement that's in place, that's why the MLC got upset. The MLC realized that Spotify started to do this little bundling thing with its premium tier for subscribers. So the way you get paid for your music through royalties is through the money that comes into Spotify. But it's important that you understand, it's not all the money, it's only the money that is attributable to the music that's on the platform. So isn't there other stuff on the platform that's not music? Of course there is, right? There are podcasts, there are audiobooks. So MLC catches wind and goes, whoa, Spotify, you and your premium tier, you're now adding in audiobooks. So for those who are on the premium tier, they get, I believe it's 15 hours of audiobook listening. And that matters because that means in the pool, we're now not counting all the audiobook streaming, right? And that means you get diluted as a creator, as a songwriter, you get diluted. And so the MLCs goes, hey, we've been noticing that we've been getting paid a whole lot less. Now we know why. And obviously in like the long term, this is really bad. So when we kind of reported on this before, we go, okay, pursuant to that Phonorecord IV Agreement, well, there actually was this little provision that's like, hey, if there's a bundling, then that's okay. That's permissible. So MLC goes, no. You're basically taking advantage of a technicality that is in the agreement, but you haven't changed what this is. You added in 15 hours of audiobook listening. And so therefore you haven't really complied with the agreement and this is bad and we're suing you. So we go, all right, cool. The MLC, it's doing its job to protect songwriters and get you your royalties as much as possible. So they sue. And then we got an update. Okay, which is lawsuit got dismissed with prejudice. So Spotify, once again, found a way to legally pay song creators less. And the reason why is because, the court's like, well, pursuant to the contract, I think that them adding in the audiobook listening is, transforming into the thing that it needs to be to conform with the contract. So It's okay. Marketing has always been such a pain point for me, and I've spent so much money trying to figure out how to do this and to actually grow social media organically, because whether you're in the music business or you have a business that's completely in a different field, I've done that from the different businesses that I have grown, including like for my music career. So if this is something that you need help with, I have synthesized all this information into a course. This thing is quick and dirty. It's meant to give you about under an hour of all the things that I know, the marketing schedule that you need, an actual game plan, what to post, when to post. So if that's something that you need help with, check out the link down below, Marketing Made Easy. That's part one of where we're at right now. We have this lawsuit. It didn't go well. We don't know if the Mechanical Licensing Collective is going to appeal this. They might. Okay, so the war is not necessarily over, but you know, the reason why this matters is because we go, all right, if you have your music on platforms right now, do you know how much money you get paid? My understanding is that Spotify pays around like 0.003 to 0.005 per stream. Now, what we can agree on and understand is that you're not getting paid enough. And so what I was looking at today is I go, well, last year, 2024, was the first year that Spotify was profitable, which is insane for a company that's been making hundreds of millions and now billions of dollars, right? So these are the numbers. We go, Spotify for 2024 earned approximately $16 billion. And what they're saying is they go, well, of that, 10 billion was paid to the music industry. Well, that's such a nice headline. Did you get that money? I didn't. And so then of that, the profit was approximately, I think it was 1.6 billion. 1.6 billion. So in this realm of we go, well, you know, we've talked about different people in the music industry who are like, well, are, you know, musicians and song creators just complainers? Because really all they're doing is they just put their songs on Spotify. They don't do anything to really make money from their music. And then they just complain that Spotify isn't paying them enough. Well, I think that in a vacuum, you can look at a platform and say, are you paying artists enough for their music to be on your platform, which is the basis of how a platform like Spotify has grown. You are a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and you have built and ballooned based on what is in majority independent artists' music, right? I think we can at least all agree on that. And now we know you have a little buffer of 1.6 billion of profit. Okay. So then, with that being said, we now have another update that just happened. Basically, the National Music Publishers Association, which PS was the company, or I should say the entity, that raised a stink in the first place. Remember I talked about, I'm like, oh, remember they had a big fight and they went and they fought about it and then they got these Phonorecord agreements. All right, same entity. So now they're the ones raising a stink again because you know what? I can understand why they're a little peeved at Spotify. All right, so they're announcing that they are launching, right, an initiative against Spotify over alleged unlicensed uses of music and podcasts on its platform. Now, this is something that we, you know, even on this channel, right? Because like my podcast is not my music. My music under Miss Krystle, right? Separate thing. And we will put my music sometimes at like the end of a show, right? And we've never gotten any kind of like copyright claims. We've never gotten paid for the use of the music in my show. The point just being, it doesn't happen. So I can speak from personal experience. I go, okay, well, if that's the case, then that means, at least in my experience, when you are uploading through the podcast distributor, it's a different ballgame. What we do know is that for the music distributors, man, they got all kinds of algorithms and technology to figure out, are you stealing stuff? Are you sampling? And then your stuff will get flagged and taken down and all this. And there's not that same level of scrutiny, right? Or governance over the podcast stuff. That has been my experience. Okay, so that's what they're claiming, all right? So they go, according to the Publishers Association, beginning on February 4th, the notices were sent over to Spotify, okay? And the, quote, takedown program includes a bunch of publishers on behalf of Sony, Universal, Warner. Over 2,500 alleged, quote, detections of infringement, end quote, are included in the initial takedown. Now here's the thing. Spotify came back. And the CEO goes, this is nothing more than a press stunt. They go, we've been trying to get in touch with them. They're ignoring us, okay? He went and slammed the publishing group and said this is a press stunt, claiming further that the move is, quote, a weak reaction to the court's dismissal of the Mechanical Licensing Collective's bundling lawsuit against Spotify last week, aka y'all are sore losers. Okay, so that's why I wanted to give you the context about the MLC's bundling lawsuit, because he's just casually referencing it. He's like, you're just coming out of the woodworks because you know what, pursuant to the deal that we did back in 2018, and then it got renewed, and now there's a new one. You're just pissed because MLC lost on that lawsuit. I don't know what you guys think, but that doesn't seem like the greatest look to me. The Spotify spokesperson full statement reads as follows, quote, "This is a weak reaction to the judge dismissing the lawsuit. Last summer, the publishing associations claimed there were unlicensed work in podcasts. The fact that the Publishing Association waited months despite multiple written requests by Spotify for details, which they never bothered to answer to report these episodes, only further emphasizes that this is a press stunt." Now, being a real lawyer, that gets into these situations, I go, I don't know what that means. What do you mean that there were multiple written requests? Are you saying 2? Are you saying you were talking to Tina, the assistant? Like, what does this mean? And when you say request, again, what are you requesting? Sounds like you just owe money. But that's the problem. I don't want to take this out of context, because maybe taking the other side and being like, well, we wrote robust letters that we sent to your law firm, and the lawyers who are the authorized agents ignored us. Like, I don't know what this means, okay? Platforms like Spotify, which are home to millions of pieces of UGC's content, regularly receive takedown requests, and as always, we will act promptly and, where appropriately, remove the episodes in questions. Okay, so AKA, we wait to get some kind of takedown request, and if and when we do, we'll take care of it. So there really is, though, like an issue of music being used without permission. And so there's monitoring that needs to happen. And also, my understanding is that for like audiobooks and podcasts, if there's any money paid, it's going to be in like a licensing deal. There's not like the ongoing royalties that you get paid for your audiobook or the podcast if you're a musician. So there is a big divide in how it works. Again, this is why I wanted to give you context so you understand the problem here, that the music is being really strongly regulated, and then there's a whole disconnect about the payments not quite making them to the artists, right? But then what about your guys' music that is then ending up in, let's say, a podcast without authorization? Because, sometimes there's just innocent infringement. They're like, oh my gosh, I love this song, and someone just doesn't know that they're not allowed to do that, or that's copyright infringement, or that they need to pay you to use your stuff. Spotify's like, no, if we get a takedown, we'll do it. Spotify also confirmed that it has received the list of URLs from the Publishing Association or Publishers Association, and is investigating the takedown requests. It's had hundreds, or it's for shows from the New York Times, Slate, and iHeart. I mean, this is such a nice story. Okay, but this is where I wanted to circle back. Do you guys remember? We also covered how Universal had just done a new deal with Spotify. We went through that deal in detail. In regards to the Universal multi-year licensing agreement, which includes a direct license between Universal and Spotify, plus multiple other territories. Now, the reason why we were just kind of pulling out our hair reading about this deal is because we go, well, a big complaint that was brought by the Mechanical Licensing Collective is this bundling issue. And I mean, forget about the lawsuit, but like the industry as a whole vomited a little bit in regards to this. Okay, it's not a good look. And, in response, Spotify was congenial with Universal in this deal. And so they go, well, we're actually going to pay you more for these like bundling things, because we want to basically kind of correct the issue. We want to calm the waters in regards to this bundling problem. The article was just kind of like, oh, this is such a win, and artists, they're going to, they're going to get paid more. I'm like, what are you talking about? Universal artists, well, Universal first, and then if the artist gets paid. But you get my point. The funnel goes through Universal only. So the rest of us out here, we're still subject to that bundling, that premium tier, right? So in the landscape of kind of where we're at today, and how we really can say that Spotify has truly found yet another way to legally pay song creators less, there's the side of this where it's like, this is what they can do. They have this Phonorecords IV Agreement. They got the big old, rubber stamp from the Copyright Royalty Board. They're okay to do this. And even now they have a judge, a federal judge, that ruled recently enforcing this. But then we look at it and we go, okay, well, if we're seeing that Spotify made $1.6 billion last year and it's on the uptick, there are more subscriptions. And oh, yeah, P.S. over the course of 12 months, Spotify increased its subscription rates 2 times. They're figuring out their business model, and it's still built on the backs of music creators. Let me know what you think about that. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. I'm Top Music Attorney.